Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witnesses that they are living in a modern day spiritual paradise. I am your host, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and a kid raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the 70s and 80s. Quickly becoming a unique generation with this organization, as I do every week. Just a quick warning, we try to have some fun here. We try to heal with each episode. There's sarcasm, humor, my own observations. Please note, none of this is ever meant to offend, whether we agree or disagree. Simply my take. Welcome in. Watch where you step in paradise. I want to start by asking a very important question. How are you feeling today? It is my hope that as you listen to this silly show that you are relaxing. Despite my best wishes, I'm guessing that at least one person, and likely more that might be listening, are dealing with stress and anxiety. I know I've had a stressful week. I don't think it's rocket science to figure out that we all deal with stress and anxiety. So from the outset, to anybody who's going through it, huge hugs, in fact, to everyone. It is not always easy in this journey we call life. It doesn't matter who you are, where we live, stress, pressure, worry, it gets to all of us. It affects all of us, and none of us are immune to it. And I'm here to emphasize at the outset, it is not to be taken lightly. Do not take stress and anxiety lightly. They are powerful everyday foes. They're probably the biggest things we fight on an everyday basis. We all feel it. And some of us, frankly, as you look around the world, feel it more than others. It's always there. And it's interesting to note that when it comes to stress and anxiety and the human experience, it's not just a U.S. problem. I am in the United States. That is where I live. But you can look around the world and see that, again, overemphasizing it, it's part of the human experience. A Gallup poll from 2018, and I find this very interesting, had the country of Greece as the most stressed out nation. Do you care to take a guess at who number 2 and 3 were? Very odd, at least to me, and it shows you the bias in all of us face in where we live. It was followed by the Philippines as the second most stressed out nation, and the third, according to this 2018 Gallup poll, was the nation of Tanzania. By the way, fantastic coffee there. Stress is everywhere. Stress statistics, as reported by the organization Single Care, you can find that online, had some incredible statistics to consider when it comes to stress. And the only reason I bring this up isn't to add to our stress, but rather to consider how much it permeates our life. Sometimes we're so used to stress that we feel immune to it, that it's just part of our everyday experience. But note some of these statistics, and how really serious we should take stress and anxiety. Here's a few. More than 3/4 of adults report symptoms of stress, including headache, tiredness, or sleeping problems. Can anybody relate to that? That's according to the American Psychological Association of 2019. 80% of U.S. workers say they experience stress on the job. That's according to the American Institute of Stress. There's a whole organization for stress. Nearly half of all U.S. adults, 49%, say that stress has negatively affected their behavior. That's from the American Psychological Association of 2020. Approximately 284 million people worldwide have an anxiety disorder. That's from Our World in Data of 2017. It's an old report now. When asked to rate their stress level out of 10, here's how U.S. adults responded by age group, as compiled by the American Psychological Association in 2020. This was so interesting to me. Gen Z, 6.1 out of 10 on a stress scale. Millennials, 5.6. Gen X, that's my generation, 5.2. Baby boomers, 4.0. And older adults, 3.3. What a tragic poll. Our youngest people are the most stressed out. As you get older, you either accept it, you've learned to deal with it, or you know the clock's ticking. Unbelievable that stress is impacting our younger generation at such a high rate. But the statistics continue. 77% of Americans say that they regularly experience physical symptoms of stress, and 73% reported experiencing psychological symptoms, according to the Psychological Association 2017 report. It's estimated that job stress costs the U.S. industry more than $300 billion a year in absenteeism, turnover, diminished productivity, and medical, legal, and insurance costs. That's from the American Institute of Stress. I could keep going, but I think it's pretty obvious that stress is clearly a massive problem, a massive problem for all of mankind. And I'm not here trying to depress anyone with these overwhelming statistics. But stress, when left unchecked, costs people their lives by manifesting in physical problems, deteriorating mental health, and the decisions at times that some make that are absolutely tragic and can't be reversed. So again, I say at the outset of this episode, after that depressing intro, that stress and anxiety are not things to take lightly. They're very serious after all. And from the outset, I encourage anyone feeling overwhelmed with anxiety or stress to please seek help medically, emotionally, get that support group, get that help. It is very bad for you. Please don't try to tough it out. But when we consider how stress and anxiety are part of the human experience, it shouldn't surprise anyone that the God of the Bible and his son Jesus had a lot to say about stress. We are told in the first few chapters of the Bible that negative stress, pain, and problems were never the intent when they made us. Their intention was for humans to walk around in the nude. I might add that that is very liberating and comfortable. Don't do it when others are around. But you remember that that was their initial intent, to walk around in the nude on a paradise earth, eating lots of veggies, and well, not many challenges. Not a lot of challenges in that original purpose. Not sure when you look back what we were going to do all day. And the only thing they asked us to do was to have lots and lots of sex, to travel and have a lot of pet animals. That was the original purpose. That was it. You can find it here at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28 of the New World Translation, where we are told, quote, "Further, God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and become many, fill the earth and subdue it, and have in subjection the fish of the sea and the flying creatures of the heavens and every living creature that is moving on the earth.'" End quote. There it is, the original purpose. Have a lot of sex, travel, and have pet animals. And I got to tell you, it sounds pretty damn good after all the stress we're under. If only, huh? If only it had worked out. If only Jehovah hadn't let a talking snake in on his plan. We might all be wandering the countryside, and we might know where each other's birthmarks are. But again, that was the plan. Forever and ever and ever. Eventually, we might be boring, but let's be honest. It sounds fairly stress-free. With all of that said, Jehovah is very interested in our stress levels. Why do I say that? And it's never meant to offend folks. Because in what is quickly becoming a trend, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is currently featuring Awake number 1 from 2020 on their website. And this one caught my eye immediately. The article that I want to dive into, including all that they teach on the subject, is entitled How to Deal with Stress. And upon hearing that title, did you have the same reaction that I did? Upon seeing it, I put my head down on my desk and I laughed. And I laughed a lot. I couldn't help but immediately think about the paradox that is King Jesus Christ of the Bible versus the 9 guys he chose in upstate New York. Now you might be thinking, why do I say that? Well, let's do a bit of comparison on Jesus' words regarding stress and anxiety versus the words and actions of his guys in New York. And as always, I like to start with the king. Let's start at the top with Jesus himself, where he said stuff like this and had it recorded for all of mankind. At Matthew chapter 6 and verse 34 of the New World Translation, Jesus said, "So never be anxious about the next day, for the next day will have its own anxieties. Each day has enough of its own troubles." End quote. And Jesus wasn't all talk, folks. He also gave us real world experiences to draw from on how to handle stress, anxiety, worrying about things, overthinking. Who can remember this? From Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 41 of the New World Translation, we get a story, and I wondered if this is where the trend started. It cannot be corroborated. We know the Watchtower's endless stories of people. But here's what Jesus had recorded. Quote, "Now as they went on their way, he entered into a certain village. Here a woman named Martha received him as a guest in her house. She also had a sister called Mary, who sat down at the feet of the Lord and kept listening to what he was saying. Martha, on the other hand, was distracted with attending to many duties." End quote for a moment. I think we can all relate, right? The endless grind of life. Many duties. If you've got kids, they just pile up to the ceiling. There's an endless list of things to do every day. And we have here Jesus telling us a story of Martha and Mary, his friends. Martha is an overthinker. She's an overworker. She's pushing things to the limit while Mary is sitting at his feet and listening on. Let's get back to the story. I said and left off where Martha had distractions while attending to many duties. Back to the quote. "So she came to him and said, 'Lord, does it not matter to you that my sister has left me alone to attend to things? Tell her to come and help me.' In answer, the Lord said to her, 'Martha, Martha, you are anxious and disturbed about many things. A few things, though, are needed, or just one. For her part, Mary chose the good portion, and it will not be taken away from her.'" End quote. And for those of us that are type A, hard workers, a little more intense, I think we've all been there. Can we relate? Or have we? I doubt any of us have hosted the guy that created the universe and could read our thoughts, in our homes, and worried about whether the hot dogs on the grill were kosher or not, or if the bathroom was clean and had fresh towels. I doubt we've ever been there, but we've been in other stressful situations as hosts. Nonetheless, I think most of us can understand Martha's stress. Most of us get that way when a mother-in-law comes to visit. Can you relate to that? Instant stress. But finally, Jesus was so concerned about our stress levels that he said this. At Matthew 11:28 through 30 of the New World Translation, Jesus says, quote, "Come to me, all you who are toiling and loaded down, and I will refresh you. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, For I am mild-tempered and lowly in heart, and you will find refreshment for yourselves. For my yoke is kindly and my load is light. End quote. Wait a minute. What? Wait a minute. What? Jehovah's Witness. Wait a minute. The load is light? Refreshment? Oh, yes. It's a great reminder from the King himself. You see, Jesus was so concerned about our stress levels, and most especially the only people on this entire planet he gave Holy Spirit to in 2024. That's right, Jehovah's Witnesses, that he wants to remind us that anything he asks of them is a light load, and that by following anything he asks them to do, that did you note that they will be refreshed? Jesus was saying that being a Jehovah's Witness was a stress-free zone for the most part, that it was refreshing. And by just being one, you will eventually, there is one of those words they like as well, eventually, get relief. You would get relief from all the stress and anxiety of today's chaos, because after all, you know the truth. Please note, these are Jesus' words from the book he wrote specifically for Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're one listening, not the words of this mentally diseased apostate. I didn't make this up. Please cross-reference with your New World Translation. Refreshment. Jesus favored adding no further burden or stress to our lives, and certainly not to the lives of those that loyally serve him as Jehovah's Witnesses. In that inspired verse, Jesus actually says, quote, learn from me, end quote. Learn from me, watch me, see how I do it. Meaning that anyone representing him could learn how to handle stress and anxiety from the best, from watching Jesus himself and how he handled stress and what and how he dealt with people. Excellent, right? Excellent. The guy that made us and knows us intimately provided a template on handling stress. So with that, and I could keep going, we'll stop there. Let's compare it to his guys that he handpicked, allegedly, in upstate New York, and their advice and examples on all things stress, from the currently featured 2020 Awake article that you can see this morning on their website. Are you ready? Are you sitting down? Are you ready for some stress relief? Dare I say it, are you ready for some refreshment from God's organization? Let's dive into the counsel given by the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. Undoubtedly, they too will bring refreshment to our souls, right? The article currently featured there, which is quickly becoming a trend, I might add, they make it too easy. It begins with this paragraph, quote, to deal effectively with stress, you need to think about your physical health, the way you interact with others, and your goals and priorities in life. That is, what you consider to be truly important. This article will review some practical principles that can help you to deal better with stress and perhaps even reduce it, end quote. Well, that's good. That's good because, again, I came here to be refreshed, and I'd love to reduce my stress levels. I'd love to find a way to get those down a little bit. Thank you, governing body. From the outset, the men Jesus chose to lead us voiced their concerns for our physical health, our bodies, and I'm grateful for that. It's truly refreshing. That is, listen, unless, of course, you need blood to stay alive, or you happen to be a gay person and celibate, and it's impacting your body and your physical health, or We can make it more personal. You want to masturbate like doctors see fetuses doing in the womb, or you have addiction issues, continue to fall off the wagon, and the elders are now going to disfellowship you, or you're currently disfellowshipped. Aside from those things, they're very concerned about your physical health, very concerned with your physical health, as this article begins. They include the addition of how Jehovah's Witnesses interact with other people and what their goals are tied to. No mention of shunning or bad association or anyone who's not a witness being someone you should ignore or be, treat as dead. All of what they write next is designed to help you, me, and especially Jehovah's Witnesses deal with stress. And as always, they give themselves, a little out by using one of their favorite words. They say that the following principles will, quote, perhaps even reduce it. Nothing like one of those heavenly guarantees they roll out. Read this. It's from Jehovah, and it might work. It might work. Welcome to Jehovah's Witnesses. And this week on the subject of stress. Don't worry, I'm not going to read this entire article. I'm just going to mine some of their suggestions that stood out to me in this piece of work. It has 8 sections after all. You can go see it. I invite you to do that. Don't necessarily encourage it. It might actually add to your stress levels, but it is there for proof. It has your typical special boxes where they throw in some subtle messaging they hope our brains will really grab onto, like meeting attendance and things like that. But the first section is ironically titled, Try to Live One Day at a Time. Where they tell us, quote, the meaning. Each counsel point starts with the word meaning. Daily anxieties are a part of life, but do not increase today's anxieties by adding tomorrow's to them. Try to live one day at a time. Stress can cause anxiety, you don't say. So try this. First, recognize that some stress is inevitable. Fretting over things you cannot prevent increases your stress. Second, understand that quite often things do not turn out the way we may fear they will. End quote. Great advice. Great advice. Look, that's good advice. And it seems at this point to line up with what Jesus said at Matthew 6:34. But I got to tell you, in the mind of a Jehovah's Witness and one that was raised as one no longer for 15 years, it still causes me confusion. I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and my entire existence, everything I do, say, think about, it revolves around the endless reminders that every day may be my last day. These are the last days. And that I should be constantly, and I do mean constantly, be looking for happiness, not today, but in the future. My happiness is in the future. Paradise Earth, and for that rare group that gets to go to heaven, applications are still open. Everything about this organization is about the future. It's not about living in today. And I'm not twisting their words. And I can't help but wonder what that does to my stress levels if I'm a witness. How about a couple of examples? From the Watchtower of 1974, June 15th, pages 375 to 380, Serve with Eternity in View is the article. We get this counsel, quote, what a vastly different outlook, though, is found among the Christian witnesses of Jehovah. It is not a fatalistic, let us eat and drink for tomorrow we are to die. Rather, they are intensely interested in the future, looking forward to it. In fact, their whole life and thinking revolve around not a finite limited existence, but around eternity. However, is that so with you individually? End quote. So wait. Well, I'm here to get some stress relief, some refreshment. And you're telling me to live one day at a time in this article on today's website, but you're also hitting me with endless messaging, and I do mean endless, both visually, audibly, you name it, about only being happy in the future. I should be intensely looking to the future. Quote from the article. Got it. This article is from 1974, and I gotta tell you, I'm wondering how many brothers and sisters in the mid-70s were handling stress at the time. Those old-timers undoubtedly set the example, right? They were probably following the governing body's counsel on just living in the moment, one day at a time, in the present. And I gotta tell you, I'm sure it's reduced, or it did reduce, their stress levels. What? What? Just a couple of paragraphs away, in the same article of 74, a Jehovah's Witness reading this article and trying to live one day at a time in the moment is suggested we're treated to this in paragraph 18, quote, and it is the same today among true Christians who realize from the fulfillment of Bible prophecy that the end of this entire wicked system of things is near at hand. 1974. Back to the quote, true, the most accurate Bible chronology available indicates that 6,000 years of human existence will end what? In the mid-1970s. Wait a minute. Let's reread that, folks. True, the most accurate Bible chronology available indicates that 6,000 years of human existence will end in the mid-1970s. So these Christians are intensely interested to see if that will coincide with the outbreak of the Great Tribulation of our day that will eliminate all wicked ones on earth. It could. End quote. Yes. June of 1974. And 1975 was just months away, as they alluded to. I'm sure those folks, those Jehovah's Witnesses then, who were learning the truth, Bible studies, baptized, whatever the case may be, trying to live one day at a time, as the modern day governing body is suggesting to us on the website, was working good and well for them too. I'm sure thinking that the world would end in 1975 did wonders for those Jehovah's Witness stress levels in the mid-1970s. Is there anyone here who might be listening that can relate? It doesn't matter, because the entire life of a Jehovah's Witness is built around the future. The entire religion, everything it teaches, your entire life is an ongoing, endless encouragement to be living for the future. They're handing out counsel on minimizing stress by taking one day at a time while simultaneously peppering Jehovah's Witnesses with messaging that includes things like no higher education, giving up jobs, careers, and dreams, money, and all that comes with it. It ain't all that after all. They even encourage them to not have kids. Is it really a good idea? And a whole bunch of other things because, well, folks, for a Jehovah's Witness, happiness only exists in the future. And it has been that way for well over a century in God's organization. From the Watchtower of 2012, May 1st, pages 26 through 27, the article, You Can Choose a Successful Future. How? Wait, I thought I wasn't supposed to be thinking about the future. Take it one day at a time. Doesn't matter. Back to the spiritual food. How do I How do I do this? How do I choose a successful future? The quote is this: God promises that soon his original purpose for mankind and the earth will be fulfilled. Don't get excited here, folks. Don't get excited. I have lots of watchtowers in my library, lots of publications. At no point do I see all of us with perfect bodies walking around in the nude, especially for the fellas. Keeping your eyes, come on, look at me in the eyes, look the girls in the eyes, or eating kiwi on our pet elephants. At no point will you see that. Back to the quote. Unfortunately, we'll be in close, according to the Watchtower and the governing body. So if you were stressed about that, don't worry. Your birthmark is safe with us. Back to the quote, God promises that soon his original purpose for mankind and the earth will be fulfilled. Those who love God will have the opportunity to enjoy life forever in a beautifully restored earth. Pay close attention to the next sentence. That future can be yours if you take a long-range view. End quote. We're discussing stress and anxiety. I'm stressed out. And I thought in your opening paragraph on the website this morning, I read to just take one day at a time and be present. What's all this future stuff about? I'm only going to be happy and stress-free if I obey you right now and then, keep my eye on the future. This, frankly, is stressing me out. It's adding to my stress. I'm not feeling refreshed. But why stop there? From the Watchtower of 1985, April 1st, pages 4 through 6, the article, Happiness Through a Precious Relationship says, quote, in spite of all this, it is the purpose of our loving Creator that all those who love and obey him will be liberated from the frustration and futility that is our lot today. Is this expression of God's loving kindness not better than our present limited and uncertain future? To be the recipient of his loving kindness, yes, to live in that new order and to enjoy life filled with purpose and meaning would certainly be a most worthwhile goal. Note this: to realize that happy prospect, one must gain Jehovah's approval now and maintain a close relationship with him and his people. End quote. You too can reduce your stress by living in the moment during your life, because you'll be happy in the future, but only if you maintain, key word, a close relationship with Jehovah's Witnesses. It all leads to less stress, and it all leads back to them. The next subheading is a good one in this article. It's called Set Reasonable Standards. This is the article on the website we're mining. Under the meaning section, it says, quote, do not be a perfectionist. Avoid setting unrealistically high standards for yourself or others. I have to stop there for a moment. What? Unrealistic high standards? Why would I do that if I'm a witness? Where'd I get that from? Back to the quote, be modest, set reasonable standards, and know both your limitations and those of others. When you do this, you will reduce stress all around and even encourage greater success. Also, keep a sense of humor. When you laugh, even when something goes wrong, you relieve tension and brighten your mood. End quote. Got to tell you, I apply that weekly on this show. We just don't have enough time. Just looking at that paragraph, we just don't have enough time. Reasonableness. A subject I've wanted to tackle on this crazy little show for a very long time. The governing body says that Jehovah's Witnesses and anyone reading this article on the website will have less stress if they're just more reasonable. that setting unrealistic high standards for ourselves and others, gosh, that adds a lot of stress to our lives. You don't say, 9 guys in New York. Being unreasonable adds stress to people's lives. Now, where would a Jehovah's Witness have learned to be unreasonable from? Where would they have learned perfectionism from? Something just crossed my mind. How about this? How about this? From the Watchtower of 1994, August 1st, page 19, paragraph 11, cultivate reasonableness. Man, the quote is this: when Jesus walked the earth, his reasonableness truly shone through in the way he wielded his God-granted authority. How different he was from the religious leaders of his day. Consider an example. God's law had ordered that no work, not even the gathering of wood, be done on the Sabbath. The religious leaders wanted to control just how people applied that law. So they took it upon themselves to decree exactly what a person could lift on the Sabbath. They ruled nothing heavier than 2 dried figs. They even issued a prohibition on sandals shod with nails, claiming that lifting the extra weight of the nails would constitute work. It is said that, all in all, the rabbis added 39 rules to God's laws about the Sabbath and then made endless additions to those rules. Jesus, on the other hand, did not seek to control people through shame by laying down endless, restrictive rules or by setting rigid, unreachable standards. Responsible brothers today are equally interested in reaching hearts. Thus, they avoid laying down arbitrary, inflexible rules or turning their personal viewpoints and opinions into law. End quote. Watchtower, 1994, August 1st, page 19, paragraph 11. One for the ages. Well, enforcing a bunch of rules not found in the Bible would certainly add to your stress levels now, wouldn't it? As it did to the early Hebrews. 2 figs. Oh, I will let you do that. We'll give you the 2 figs. You can have nails in your shoe. Where have we heard this before? For example, men in positions of authority telling other men where hair is allowed to grow on their bodies. You can grow it here but not there for almost a century. Or requiring neckties and dress shirts to tell other peoples about paradise and how they can live forever. Or telling 2 married people where they can put their mouths and tongues on each other's bodies. Or telling other people how to raise their kids, or if they can be educated or not. Or creating more authority figures by requiring that they knock on doors for 10 hours a month, and then, and only then, appointing them as elders based on this one requirement not found in the Bible. I could keep going. Oh my God, could I keep going? But I love to hear the ones that popped into your mind when you heard the words reasonable and Jehovah's Witnesses, including a paragraph in 94 that doesn't support their article from the website on stress. Rigid rules, arbitrary opinions, holding people to standards not found by Jesus himself. Where have we all heard that before? I think at this point, and I was thinking about this, I want to share. Look, you may hear this and think, what's the big deal? But this is still a devastating story to me. It's a devastating story. I try to be honest and transparent here, so I'm going to throw myself under the bus. And it was so stressful that I still remember the moment in vivid detail. It breaks my heart to even tell this story, but I think it's important to show you the depth at which this type of thinking and the stress it adds to the life of a Jehovah's Witness. My only son was in junior high school, and he was growing his hair long at the time, mostly because he was insecure at that point, aren't we all? And he also was dealing with acne. He wanted to hide it. Okay? Got that from me. Lucky kid. I was an elder at this time, a fairly well-known one, and I took him to a barber and told them to cut his hair. Cut it. Because, I was an elder. And my son has to set an example. He can't have long hair. It upsets Jesus, and it sets a bad example in the congregation. I'll never forget the feeling, and I'm having it now in my solar plexus, as he sat there in tears as the woman cut his hair. She could see he was upset. He was emotional. And when she asked why, oh, you guessed it. Dad here saw the opportunity to witness to her. That's right. She needs to have her life saved too. After what was a laughably stupid set of answers from me, she stopped cutting his hair, and she looked at his eyes, which were welling up. She looked at me. I was resolute in my stance for Jehovah and his organization. And she looked at me and she said, Dad, God doesn't care how long someone's hair is. I'm getting physically sick just relating this story to you. Just thinking about it again. I was gutted. I was gutted on the spot. Those simple words cut through my own stress, my own cognitive dissonance, but my own stress, and they cut to the heart, and it devastated me at the time. She was right. But my son now had short hair because of me. And it hurts me to this day. But of course, it was one small example that made such an impact on me. It was all part of the supposedly refreshing and less stressful life of a Jehovah's Witness. The arbitrary rules, the judgment, the perfectionism, the standards not found anywhere in this book that we're supposed to hold as the touchstone for life, that are handed down by 9 men that not only don't relieve stress, they create an avalanche of stress, anxiety, pain, worry, tension, overthinking. The words can go on and on. But they will tell you that none of this stuff creates any stress, though. And you should be like Jehovah's Witnesses. All of this reasonableness can be found in their organization. And it just might, what's your opinion, contribute to the depression, the dependence on pharmaceuticals, and the rampant alcoholism you can find in virtually every congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. But remember, the Watchtower of 1988, March 1st, page 17, said this, quote, "Indeed, in every country, even those mentioned at the outset, Jehovah's people are the best and the happiest," end quote. And I gotta tell you, if that is true, why the hell are they publishing articles on how to manage stress? They're already the best and happiest people. Why do they need stress relief? It's because they're so reasonable, folks. But you sisters listening, don't you forget to put a napkin on your head when talking to a householder about the Bible, and that householder just happens to own a penis. He might be 10 years old. He might be 60 years old. But he has a penis. And you don't. You don't. And you don't want to upset the angels watching on that directed you to him, do you? It's all very reasonable. And it's incredibly stress-free. No worry or anxiety with this messaging. But nothing speaks to stress busting like setting realistic, reasonable expectations for yourself and others. That was the counsel in this article. Among those realistic expectations is that if you do make a mistake as a Jehovah's Witness, you stand a very good and reasonable chance of being shunned by everyone you've ever known for the rest of your life. Unless you tell them you're sorry, just in a special way that three strange guys believe you. From the time you're baptized as a Jehovah's Witness, you have the sword of Damocles hanging over your head the rest of your life. Mess up, even if it's just once, and they can disfellowship you. Disagree with the 9 guys in New York, and they can excommunicate you. Fail to hide your sexuality, and they can get everyone, including your own parents who created you, to never speak to you again. It's not stressful at all inside Jehovah's Witnesses. It's all very reasonable. Might I add, it's all very refreshing, like Jesus, right? And aside from all of the things I've just mentioned, there is always the big one we can turn to when examining stress and anxiety inside the life of a Jehovah's Witness. You simply cannot measure the amount of stress caused by this. And what's funny is that it's in the Bible, and they know the stress it causes people. From the Awake of 94, September 8th, pages 14 through 15, what can help you cope with stress? Again, they're the happiest people, but this stress seems to be a theme for several decades with them. The quote says this: avoid unreasonable expectations. Expectation postponed is making the heart sick, says the Bible. Wait a minute. And quote for a moment, waiting and waiting for something that has been promised to show up, that causes stress? Does that cause me stress and worry? Back to the quote, start from the beginning. Expectation postponed is making the heart sick, says the Bible at Proverbs 13:12. When expectations are never fulfilled, the stress can be overpowering. This is almost bound to occur when we set our expectations unrealistically high. End quote. Folks, for my generation, we fully bought into never dying, that we would see paradise before the year 2000. Oops. In all seriousness, this postponed expectation, we were told in many places you can read today on their website, was a fact, has caused massive tragedy. Never mind the stress. At the low end of the stress scale, there is lost potential and time. At the high end, there has been loss of life. Giving us a canned, silly blog-style article on your website today on stress doesn't make up for it. It does not make up for it. But the stress and anxiety and worry caused by promises that were nothing more than lies, it's immeasurable. And I admit that I still feel it every day, and I haven't been a witness for 15 years. That stress hangs in your body. Postponed expectations. Do they have a few? Do you feel them? Have you felt them? Has someone you love felt them? Did it add to your stress? But this illustrious article on the website on eliminating stress continues with the subheading, Know What Stresses You. Under the meaning section, quote, negative emotions can cloud clear thinking, so try to stay calm. Identify what stresses you and note your response. For example, when you feel stressed, note your thoughts, feelings, and behavior, perhaps even making a record of them. By becoming more aware of your response to stress, you may be able to deal with it more effectively. Also, think of ways to eliminate stressful things from your life. If that is unrealistic, look for ways to reduce their impact, perhaps by managing your tasks or time more efficiently. End quote. Now, let me just ask anyone listening, what stressed you out the most as a Jehovah's Witness? If you're thinking many, many things, well, you're not alone. But they asked us in this article, their words, not mine, to identify what stresses us and eliminate it. I can tell you that I have received instant stress relief when I wasn't required anymore to hold down a job, prepare for 5 weekly meetings, attend all those meetings, and spend my weekends convincing others my life was stress-free, better than theirs, and they should do what I'm doing. I got instant stress relief 15 years ago. Let me ask, did you personally consider field service stressful? Anybody? Anybody find field service stressful? I did. And I'm not just talking about pioneers who had to work to support themselves, then find ridiculous, crazy ways to meet a 90-hour monthly requirement handing out their books and magazines. I'm talking about any publisher at this point among Jehovah's Witnesses. Anyone. Nothing makes you feel stress like telling someone they should believe like you believe, or that your God is going to kill them any second now. No stress at all. Who remembers those sleepless nights? I'm guessing more than just myself struggled with that one too. Would I be right? I sure did. From the Watchtower of 1998, December 1st, pages 13 through 18, Defending Our Faith, Jehovah's Witnesses were told this, quote, "Let your reasonableness become known to all men. To begin with, we need to have the right view, Jehovah's view, of those who do not share our religious convictions. Otherwise, we might unnecessarily invite hostility or reproach from others. Let your reasonableness become known to all men," wrote the Apostle Paul. Hence, the Bible encourages us to have a balanced view of those outside the Christian congregation. End quote. Wait a minute, what? You know, I think most of us do have a balanced view of others. I really do. However, my stress comes from the endless images the governing body has provided me in their literature, talks, and now in their videos of how they view those same people outside their congregation and how they can't wait to kill them in gruesome ways. Who can forget Tony Morris, no longer a king apparently, relieved of his discreet slave duty and golfing somewhere in North Carolina apparently, when he grinned and talked about people looking like split open hot dogs at Armageddon. Why again? Why was he doing that? Because the governing body and Jehovah's Witnesses know that that person doesn't agree with him and his buddies. So, Tony and the governing body at that time viewed them as split open hot dogs. I slept like a baby after watching that video. So did the kids in the audience. A Jehovah's Witness lives life looking around at every non-Jehovah's Witness, despite that quote I just read, thinking, I'm going to watch that person die. It is horrific, people. It is horrific. Make no mistake, that is the teaching of Jehovah's Witnesses. You could talk about reasonableness, refreshment, stress-free. The message is a simple one. Believe what we believe. If you don't, you're dead. And I'll be there to watch. Stress? Did it cause you some stress? I'm getting stressed out talking about it. But never mind. The governing body has more to say about stress relief in the article on the website this week. Shall we continue? One of the next subheadings is pursue a balanced lifestyle. I'm sorry. Wow. Bastions of balance, these guys, where they quote the following scripture that had more impact on me thinking about this subject than ever before. It comes to us from Ecclesiastes 4:6 of the New World Translation, which says, better, quote, better is a handful of rest than two handfuls of hard work and chasing after the wind, end quote. I have a new favorite scripture I'd never considered before. They go on to apply it on the website article here, quote, meaning, workaholics can deprive themselves of the benefits of their two handfuls of hard work. They may have no time or energy left to enjoy what they have worked for. Make time to relax. You relieve stress when you do things you enjoy. However, passive recreation, such as watching TV, may not help. Keep technology in its place. Avoid constantly checking emails, texts, or social media sites, end quote. This incidentally was posted on jw.org, their media and technology site. Do you mean like JW.org? Oh, not that one. No, of course not. You should live there. You should always be on the website. A person is bringing a lot of stress on themselves when exposing themselves to technology that features the following. And this is me just doing a quick search on the website that we're told, maybe take a break from it and relax, but not really. Here's just an idea of what you'll find right now on the website that may or may not add to your stress levels. Are you ready? How about this? What does the Bible say about cremation? How can the Bible help those with suicidal thoughts? What? What does the Bible say about euthanasia? What does the Bible say about homosexuality? I'm going to give you a guess there. Did I mention that this is but a sampling of the subjects on their technology? That in the same article you're reading on their technology, they're telling you not to spend so much time on technology. Round and round and round we go. And we can't forget their latest technology that is required viewing for Jehovah's Witnesses. We can't forget that. Their fancy movies, their dramas, their reenactments, hiding in bunkers while guys with machine guns break into the room, battlefields showing dead soldiers everywhere, and even Caleb and Sophia videos that feature Noah and the animals being drowned if they didn't listen to Jehovah. Yeah, that's a thing, folks. They actually showed kids, what if Noah didn't listen? They show him and the animals drowning. Watching giraffes drown never stresses out an innocent child, does it? Nah, never. Never. Neither do those great illustrations that are so famous at this point of the earth being destroyed in their literature. People running for their lives as fireballs aim at their heads and chase them. But again, I can't emphasize the stress of field service enough. I got to come back to that. It's awful. It's awful. They're talking here about taking a break, relaxing. That's a way to reduce stress. Not having too heavy of a workload. Being balanced. But then there's field service, folks. And I despised it. Everything about it caused dread for me. It started on really about Thursday, since Saturday was my main service day. We all know the life schedule of a Jehovah's Witness, including man-made fabrications like, national averages for field service and the accusations of blood guilt if your every waking moment isn't spent in field service. You, my friend, by not going out, are getting people killed because Jehovah has no problem. Just think of this. Jehovah has no problem killing someone who never got a visit from you because you slept in relaxing and you were stressed out. He doesn't have any problem killing that person because you didn't show up. It's someone's... It's their fault after all. And well, he will then usher you, the same person who was stressed out, slept in, didn't go to their door and got him killed. He'll usher you into paradise because you obeyed 9 guys in New York. Take a breath. But serious question. When does a faithful Jehovah's Witness have time to relax or enjoy what they worked for? I suppose you could give it a shot, but you will quickly be labeled a weak or a low-hour publisher or even bad association if you're not part of the highly unbalanced schedule that these guys roll out for a Jehovah's Witness. It is all-consuming, and it is highly stressful. Highly stressful. Miss a few meetings pursuing a hobby or going to a concert? Let me know how that goes. I laugh at all of this because you can see these things cause stress. Stress I can immediately point to despite leaving 15 years ago. And I got to tell you, stress truly does leave scars. And that definitely applies to Jehovah's Witnesses. There are several other subheadings in this article on the website this week, but I'm going to skip to the inevitable, which is care for your spiritual need. That's the subheading, and it includes this advice for stressed out people. Quote, prayer can be a big help. Read spiritually uplifting things. The principles discussed in this magazine come from the Bible, which was written to satisfy our spiritual need. These also foster practical wisdom and thinking ability. End quote. And I'll tell you right now, it's time for my weekly reminder of what you can find in the Bible. You're stressed out after a long week and you need a little comfort from Jehovah. You're tired. The governing body told you to read the Bible as a source of relief, of refreshment. So you pick it up as the best book you've ever seen, and the book that is the authority on spiritually uplifting things, as they just said in the paragraph, and you want to learn about how King David handled stress. How did King David do it? He had a lot on his plate. On second thought, did David have some issues? The stress-busting Bible tells us he had many wives, but only names 8. Only 8, and he also had many, many concubines for the nights the ladies weren't feeling it. Talk about stress. But he wanted Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. He saw her taking a bath. He got excited. So he sends Uriah to die. He takes her. He impregnates her. You remember Bathsheba. Famous story we all know. But you're trying to unwind. You're a Jehovah's Witness, and you're looking for refreshment in the Bible, as you were told to, and you stumble on a detail you might have just overlooked before. Are you ready? 2 Samuel 12 and verse 11 of the New World Translation gives us this. Quote, this is what Jehovah says. Here I am bringing against you, this is David, calamity from within your own house and before your own eyes. I will take your wives and give them to another man, and he will lie down with your wives in broad daylight. End quote. I'm told as a witness I shouldn't watch Game of Thrones. Read the Bible instead. But what am I supposed to do with stuff like this? You see, this is just how Jehovah handles problems in the Bible. If you thought Jehovah killing the innocent babies that resulted from the adultery was bad, well, now you know, and maybe you've overlooked it in the past, that he also handed over David's wives, all innocent women, just innocent women who had nothing to do with it. He handed them over for sexual assault to another man or men, while everyone got to watch, as it says in broad daylight. David committed murder, adultery, and still never faced a judicial committee and was never disfellowshipped. In fact, he continued as the king. And Jehovah's Witnesses are told he was Jehovah's friend. And according to 1 Samuel 13:14, quote, a man after God's heart, end quote. But as for his wives who were just at home doing absolutely nothing wrong, they got to be sexually assaulted while everyone watched because David can't control himself. Relaxing. Do you feel refreshed? Read the Bible. Outside of anything in 4 books of the Gospels in the Bible is about as refreshing. What? Who needs a stiff drink when I can read spiritually uplifting stories like this from the Bible? So good that Jehovah had it recorded in the Bible so we could read it. No word yet on why. No word yet, but here we are. And the governing body says, I need to blow off some steam and stop being so stressed out. On second thought, you might want to put the good book down and get out in field service. But if that doesn't do the trick and you're feeling relaxed, check out Numbers 31. Go check out Numbers chapter 31. I'm not going there. Oh yeah, episode incoming. That's called a teaser. You're sure to be really chill after reading Numbers 31. My God. And with that, I'm stressed out. Let's wrap this up. For the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses to publish anything on stress and anxiety relief is truly absurd, especially something as juvenile and insulting as the one currently found on the homepage of the website you should probably take a break from. Not really. I feel confident that if I polled any and all former Jehovah's Witnesses and asked them their greatest source of stress when they were a Jehovah's Witness, the vast majority would answer that the number one stress they had as a Jehovah's Witness was being a Jehovah's Witness. It is a cesspool of stress and anxiety. It is a cesspool of overthinking, of perfectionism, of unending requirements that you can't find anywhere in the same book that David's wives got assaulted in. I recommend people check out J.W. Facts. He's done such a remarkable job. What a hero for some of the great stuff he has compiled there. But on this issue of stress and its long-term impact on a Jehovah's Witness, you'll find the following tidbit on the site where he goes into the studies of Jehovah Montag, which I've mentioned on this show before. Dr. Montag monitored the admissions to state and private mental hospitals and local mental health clinics in Ohio in a really small sampling from 1972 to 1976. From his study of 102 cases, small snapshot, but it's still 102 lives, people, he estimated, quote, the mental illness rate of Jehovah's Witnesses is approximately 10 to 16 times higher than the rate for the general non-witness population. From his intensive interviews with witness patients and others, Montag concluded that persons who had emotional problems were attracted to the witnesses. But involvement, let me back up and really emphasize this, quote, but involvement also caused many of the emotional problems that they suffered. This is evident from the fact that many with problems reported they were far happier after they left. End quote. I can't remotely begin to explain the stress that left my body when I exited Jehovah's Witnesses. I'll share at some point in the future my own story. But I'm more interested in any brave Jehovah's Witness that just might be here listening. You might remember we mentioned Jesus' words at Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 of the New World Translation, you're familiar, where Jesus actually said, quote, come to him and he will refresh you. I'm sure the governing body's counsel I found in this article may help you manage stress. But when you consider your life as a Jehovah's Witness, that daily dedication to your faith, the meetings, the preaching work, the conventions, the thinking, the teachings, the viewpoints, I have a question for you. Do you feel refreshed? I want to thank you for joining me this week. Wherever you may be, please go out and relax, be good to yourself, and be well.